The 1959 short film titled Giant in the Sun introduced Africa as the continent of the future. The film predicted that it would be led by a self-governed Nigeria, as it would become a former colony of Great Britain the following year. The movie, highly acclaimed at the time, demonstrated how Nigeria distinguished itself as a leader in industrial, agricultural, commercial and social development.
For all her long historic past, Nigeria is a young country, growing, even as a child grows towards maturity, to full nationhood within the British Commonwealth. Modern skills and modern thought are playing an increasing part in life, and the foundations have been well laid by other, older hands. The people of northern Nigeria face the future with confidence, knowing that with the natural resources of their land and by their own efforts, they can justify the proud title of Giant in the Sun.
The tremendous advancements shown in the documentary never materialized. Now, well over 57 years later, the nation is yet to reach its full potential. The title Giant of Africa is however fitting for Nigeria. Though not the oldest or geographically largest country on the continent, the coastal nation nonetheless stands out, mostly for its high economic status and enormous population. Nigeria's robust economy, the world's 26th largest GDP in 2016, is based on an extensive list of agricultural resources and industries too numerous to mention. Yet, nearly all of Nigeria's wealth is based on its abundant oil reserves. Petroleum and petroleum products have been the primary source of income and government revenue for more than 47 years. This reality, incidentally, has caused the nation's other viable industries to suffer. Merchants pour their resources into the oil business, seeking the best return on investment. This leaves the nation's economy vulnerable due to volatile world oil prices. The economy is not the only giant thing in Nigeria. It is easily Africa's most populous nation at over 186 million. That's nearly twice the size of Africa's second largest and the seventh most populous nation in the world. However, Nigeria's true gigantic might lies in its latent and untapped strengths, which for decades have suffered from waste, neglect, and a total lack of will to change the status quo of oil dependence. In spite of the large amounts of foreign exchange it earns from crude oil resources, Nigeria has not yet scratched the surface of its true economic might. It can do so much more with the amazing resources it already has, and this is why the world looks upon Nigeria as a sleeping giant. The recent rebasing of the economy, setting Nigeria as Africa's largest economy while revealing the true economic position of Africa's largest nation, simultaneously recertified Nigeria as the nation in the top position for worst leadership in social welfare and opportunities for the people. With 70% of the nation's population living under $1 a day, economically factored, Nigeria has the poorest people of any nation in the world today. However, in the light of Nigeria's current oil-induced economic challenges, it appears the tranquilizing effects of petrodollars, which have kept the giant slumbering for decades, are starting to wear off. With the newfound determination by the Nigerian government to diversify the economy and the clamor by ordinary Nigerians to grow the naira, there is some hope the giant could see the sunrise in our lifetime. But beyond idle hope and wishful thinking, there is unraveling evidence on the ground that gives strong reasons to believe that Nigeria's present economic adversity provides the perfect breeding ground for innovation, creativity, and enterprise that will rumble the earth and awaken the giant within this nation.
Good governance is an indeterminate term used in the international development literature to describe how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources. Governance is the process of decision-making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. The term governance can apply to corporate, international, national, local governance, or to interactions between other sectors or society. The concept of good governance often emerges as a model to compare ineffective economies or political bodies with viable economies and political bodies. The concept centers on the responsibility of governments and governing bodies to meet the need of the masses as opposed to select groups in the society. Because countries often described as most successful a Western liberal democratic state, concentrated in Europe and the Americas. Good governance standards often measure other state institutions against these states and organizations, and the authorities of developed countries often will focus the meaning of good governance to a set of requirements that conform to the organization's agenda, making good governance imply many different things in many different contexts. Good governance is about the processes for making and implementing decisions. It is not about making correct decisions, but about the best possible process for making those decisions. Good decision-making processes and good governance share several characteristics. All have a positive effect on various aspects of governance. What are some of these characteristics? 1. Good governance is accountable. 2. Good governance is transparent. 3. Good governance follows the rule of law. 4. Good governance is responsive. 5. Good governance is equitable and inclusive. 6. Good governance is effective and efficient. And 7. Good governance is participatory. Good governance is an ideal, but most times difficult to achieve in its totality. Very few countries and societies have come close to achieving it. What actions do we need to take to achieve good governance in Nigeria?
Before the coming of the Europeans in Nigeria, there was nothing like local government. In fact, there was no Nigeria or the Nigerian state. What we had were villages, towns, and ethnic groups, and a society bonded by integrity, peace, and understanding. The evolution of local government in Nigeria can therefore be traced back to the colonial day. The question would be, why was there a need for the creation of local government units in Nigeria? The simple answer is, it was created or established based on indirect rule, whereby the native authority system was created to accommodate the local duties as instruments for the manipulation of the people. The Europeans dominated the government at the hinterland as colonial or district officers, while we served as middlemen. The native authorities were to maintain law and order, and the first ordinance recognized traditional rulers as native authorities. But in 1930 and 1940, the first reform on the order was established, culminating in the establishment of chiefs in council. After the Second World War in 1945, the colonial masters realized that the local government could play an important role in development of Nigeria, and thus democratized the local government system as a bank for social infrastructure and economic development, and the objective of the local government redefined as the engine for rural development. Community development is the process by which the efforts of the people themselves are united.
The bright sunshine of Nigeria makes
Today is Monday, the 20th of January 2020, the day when Nigerians are waiting with abated breath to hear the Supreme Court judgment on the Sokoto, Benue, Bauchi, Kano polls. And well, everybody is waiting to hear what this judgment will be like, even after the Supreme Court judged on the Imo State gubernatorial election last week. Good morning and welcome to Summit. My name is Jumoke Michaels. You're welcome. Banji's right here too.
Yeah, Jumoke, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, for Governor Aminu Tambuwa of Sokoto State, the waiting period is over because even as at this minute, the Supreme Court has actually decided on the case of Sokoto State that's affirming the election of the governor. That's Honorable Aminu Tambuwa. But for Kano and other states, I think the waiting game still continues. And I also learned that people from those states, particularly the two parties involved, APC and PDP, have actually gone spiritual, praying, fasting, hoping that the pendulum will actually swing to their side. My name is Banji Busari. We are all waiting, but we believe that whoever wins, whoever has the day at the Supreme Court, we should all just join hands and believe that this democracy must not die, must continue to survive, and we must continue to upgrade it. Yes, that's this is a summit, and that's our topic today.
Yes, today we're talking about the Supreme Court ruling on Imo gubernatorial election. Some protest in some states yesterday, and well, it's supposed to continue today in Abuja, talking about the PDP supporters. Well, to discuss this issue with us this morning, we have joining us in the studio, Mr. Segun Sowunmi, the spokesperson to Atiku Abubakar, that's PDP. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
To having joined us.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Mr. Nelson Ekujumi, as a public affairs analyst. You're welcome, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming. All right.
Gentlemen, you are welcome to MITV Studios. 7 days after, one would have expected that the judgment should have actually been laid to rest. I mean, the verdict has been given. The two parties concerned, PDP and APC, should have actually accepted and then gone about their normal duties. The governor, that's the new governor, sworn in 7 days ago, or 5 days ago, has actually resumed duties and is meeting with all the stakeholders in the state. But the tension that arose based on the judgment has not actually gone down. It's that, as a matter of fact, it's actually increasing by the day. Yesterday, just as Jumoke said, 5 states went, or that means PDP members in 5 states went on different streets in Abeokuta, in Anambra, Abia, Imo, and Katsina. And they could see, I mean, lots of people on the road actually protesting, weeping, and crying for justice. When we believe the Supreme Court is supposed to be the home of justice. So what other justice are these people actually seeking after the pronouncement, after the ruling of the Apex Court? Mr. Sowunmi, I don't know if you were part of that protest.
Well, thank you. Yes, I was, and I'm completely in alignment with the position of our party, the PDP. I think you would have observed that since 2015, after we conducted, the INEC conducted an election that produced the APC-led Muhammadu Buhari government, the PDP as a political party has been very restrained in its opposition role. We have considered that the best is to allow the country to constantly make progress and not shut down the country or bring our supporters onto the field for brigandage. Our language and our comment has been well measured, not to overheat the polity. We went into the presidential election that His Excellency Atiku Abubakar participated in. We started to have concerns from the judgment that happened in Osun, how it got to the Supreme Court and it changed, but we kept calm. We went to the Supreme Court all the way down on the Atiku matter. It didn't go the way we would have wanted. We had very strong issues with how that matter went. We kept calm. And then we then saw the one that now happened with the Imo. Indeed, it is not extremely easy to keep the supporters down when they feel that they are the system is being rigged or not working well. And so, at this point in time, it was difficult to not allow some ventilation to protest that they expect a process that is free, a process that is fair, a process that is credible, and a Supreme Court or a legal situation that is consistent. What are they talking about? The Supreme Court has enormous powers because it is also the final court in our land, and it's a court of policy. Therefore, most often time than not, people are not even looking for the right or wrong or who won and who lost. People are actually more interested in the thinking behind the decision, the reason adduced, and what it means to the society. We expect that, whereas at the lower levels, people can hide under the guise of technicality, but at the level of a court of policy, so that justice would also be along the lines of what the public has observed and what they have seen. Take the case of an election. The fact remains that when an election is conducted, if it be conducted well and results emerge, right from the polling unit where those results have taken place, people will have an idea of precisely what took place. If the system is being rigged, people will know. The way the system is designed, the best place to go and discuss this matter is at the courts. So when you now get to the final court, and the people feel that what they can clearly see took place on that day has now been, upturned by the Supreme Court, it will take a lot of explaining to let them understand that this is why the decision was taken and what could have happened. But against that backdrop, there is also the obvious suspicion that if you go through the images on television or radio, even on social media and in the newspaper, you will notice that progressively our courts are beginning to lose their almighty integrity because people query with the soundness of what they are saying. For the law cannot be anti-logic, whatever the case may be. And I think that's what has happened. In Imo, for instance, the party, well, I need to explain what the case is so that people will understand. The authority to organize an election and determine whether an election is credible, fair, or free, first of all, is INEC. When INEC has declared its result, yes, people that are aggrieved can go to court. But we are running now, from what we are seeing in Imo, we are running to a level where the courts are now trying to say, in error though, that if INEC posts junior officers to the polling unit, and for whatever reason there's a problem with them or some compromise on their side, a senior officer at the level of the World Coalition cannot take a decision who, based on what he has said, to say this is wrong. And we can then move down to mean that even at the state coalition, it will not be easy for them to say this is wrong, even when they've spotted the error. And unfortunately, what the Supreme Court has done is not even mathematically tidy. The total number of accredited votes, that means the total number of votes available to all parties, is a certain number. By the addition of this extra imaginary magical votes that they have given to Hope Uzodinma, we have now seen that even the total number of votes now is more than the total number of accredited votes. So you then ask, if the highest law in the land will ridicule itself by taking decisions that probably they don't have the expertise to really see the full implication, underneath a guise that it's only what is before them that they will see, they forget that the process of the judicial, the thinking behind judicial processes allows the judge a lot of room to also be knowledgeable on what he wants to say. Why? Because when you say it at the level of the Supreme Court, there's nothing anybody can do again apart from to riot. Thank goodness God it is still peaceful now. If we do not control things and manage it, at what point in time will we be able to know when it will now take on a much more, dastardly consequence? And as far as I am concerned, and as far as His Excellency Atiku Abubakar is concerned, we do not see the political process as a process that must end in chaos. We rather have a political process that ends in, the conversation around what is the right way for the country. If we say we are the right way, we may not be supported, but we should not be cheated. And if we say if we win, we should get what we have been given. Because in the end, what is democracy? If the people's ability, the franchise given to the people to choose their leaders, is going to be robbed them underneath some guys of technicality or some smart lawyers here and there, and probably because maybe when you even get to the court, the judge can easily say for his immunity that is what is before me that I have decided upon. But then the question is, what about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? That's where the problem is.
Your principal, Atiku Abubakar, sorry, your principal Atiku Abubakar actually said that party supporters should maintain status quo and respect the Supreme Court judgment. So having them being the one now going on the streets to protest, don't you think
a leader,
an issue contradictory?
Yes. No. His Excellency Atiku Abubakar said, based on knowledge of how the system works, that once the Supreme Court makes a decision, it is not infallible, but it is the final. And as a leader of his own status, the first thing he must communicate to the system, to the Nigerian system now, including both members of the PDP and non-members of the PDP, and even those that are not interested in politics, is to say things that can douse the tension and reduce the energy of the people to create chaos. Look, sometimes when you start a process of anger, you can never know how it will spiral. I tell you again, we can go back to what is happening in the Northeast. There is enough records in the hands of government that at the early stages, some of these people that eventually metamorphosed into such a big crisis on our hand now were probably people who were, being encouraged by politicians for political reasons. And at that time, I can believe that the politician himself may not have imagined that it could go to this extent. And so for Atiku, the critical, most important, first on his list is Nigeria. What will be in the interest of Nigeria? And Atiku does not believe that it is in the interest of Nigeria to destabilize the country and to destroy it. Why? Because even more than ever before, Nigeria is at a point now where it must delicately manage its unity and the relationship between itself. Because there are other things going on in Nigeria beyond even the context and the politics that could easily implode and inflame the nation. And therefore, any leader what is solved, any leader that likes Nigeria, any leader that is a nationalist, any leader that understands how difficult it is to manage crisis will try to step people's down. And maybe because of his comments, maybe instead of the people going out with cougars and just burning stuff and all of that, maybe that's why they are even doing it peacefully. But you cannot beat a child and tell the child that he doesn't have a right to cry. And to God be the glory, we have seen that none of these things have spiraled out of control. We are all going to be the loser in the long run. Elections in our country, because of the combination of the status election of 4 years and the staggered elections that take place in between some of the other state elections, we're coming to a point that if we don't clean up the electoral process and if we do not strengthen the judiciary and get them to give us the kind of thing that all of us can be proud of, we're going to be in a constant state of crisis. And yes, you win some, you lose some, but every case must be interrogated on its merit.
Okay, let me ask. Even at that point, you win some, you lose some. Sorry, Mr. Ekujumi. It will soon be your turn. In Zamfara, your party, that's a PDP, actually won to the extent that APC was unable to field a candidate. It's the same Supreme Court that actually made this happen, and your party has actually profited from that ruling.
That's why I said.
Now again, you look at. I don't know if your party is looking at Supreme Court judges as a set of people that are infallible. The judgment has been given, and the processes were actually explained to Nigerians that in 388 polling units, the candidate of APC, that's a Hope Uzodinma's votes, were actually excluded. And it was very well explained, and the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, said that was not proper, and that was what led to the additional vote that actually made Hope emerge as winner. Now, calling for the sack of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, is that not going overboard? If you believe that you win some, you lose some.
No. When I say we win some, we lose some, I say that to protect the institution. But I added a caveat to it. Every case must be interrogated on a standalone merit, because the fundamentals and the parameters of one case may be different from fundamentals and the parameters of another one. After all, it is this same PDP that has been on the receiving end of a few of the judgments, and they've never really called out anybody to the street. But the APC, the Imo one is difficult. You come in one swap of the Supreme Court. It failed at tribunal level. It failed at Court of Appeal. In the Court of Appeal, yes, there was a minority judgment, and you get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court then says, he won. And then we are looking at how you say he won, and we're seeing that all you are producing before us is mathematically impossible for the purposes of an election. You are bringing a result to say he won that is making the entire process look dodgy. You cannot win more than the accredited number of votes, because the total number of accredited votes available is the total number of votes available. And you have done a mathematical arrangement that has made them now say, okay, he has won. Then on the 388 or 380 polling units, the other issue there is that who is the authority to tender the results of an election and to stand by it? Should it be a policeman, an INEC official, the parties involved, and who deposits to say? And the same things that they have given him as his reason now has been called dumping in an election situation that involved the PDP at the presidential level. So Nigeria, what this thing is all showing us is that the citizens of this country, maybe because of social media, they are now more discerning. They are more interested in the issues. They are more involved in, they want to follow it. And therefore, for all our sake, we must clean our electoral act. Give us, what is the big deal about having an election process that is credible, that will not even leave room for more complaints? We are even overburdening the court. Nigeria is the most litigious around the elections in the world. From pre-election issues to election issues, we just go on and on and on. And at the end of the day, we are now having a situation where we provide respect to the Supreme Court, justice of the chairman of the judge, or the justice of the Supreme Court, the lead, what's the title of the lead court? The Chief Justice of Nigeria. Justice of Nigeria. We provide respect to him. The circumstances of his emergence is what is causing all of this suspicion. I do not believe that we can say is doing anything that we can prove, for there is no evidence. But when the circumstances that threw up a situation where somebody else who was there before was removed under all sorts of circumstances, which was then called, he didn't put his, what's his name? His asset. He didn't put his asset declaration form well. The question you ask is that, have all the other justices in Nigeria passed that test? So when you see that, and the people have taken a position in their mind, albeit it may be wrong, that, oh, it is the paper of this, is the paper of that, that's it. But you see, leaders don't speak carelessly. That's why you will never see His Excellency Atiku Abubakar advocate anything other than what is going to be in the best interest of everybody. And I also believe that we are not going to do ourselves as a people a favor if we insist that until we destroy our country, we will never be happy. We may destroy it, may God not destroy Nigeria. Then what are we going to get from it? Countries that have destroyed themselves among our neighbors, we can take a look at them and see how they are living their lives.
Okay, I think people are calling the line on the number shown on the screen, but would like you to send us an SMS to be part of this discussion. I know it's something you want to contribute to, but we'd like you to just send an SMS to that number and then include your name and your location, and we'll read out your message. But please, we won't be picking any calls.
Since last Tuesday, Mr. Ekujumi, the ruling by the Supreme Court, particularly the body, all the 7 judges, I mean, the ruling has come under serious scrutiny to the extent that people are saying the Supreme Court has more or less become an extension of the federal executive, carried out the whims and caprices of the executive. Now, look at the four top contenders in the Imo gubernatorial elections. Hope Uzodimma came forth. Came forth with 96,000 votes, and all of a sudden everything changed, and he emerged victorious, beating number 3, beating number 2, and then assuming number 1 position.
Okay, please, now, I think it is important for me to debunk the statement he made that until now they have never called people out onto the streets. I hope we are all aware of the,
the
PDP. I hope we are all aware of the rally they held in Abuja to INEC office aftermath of the Osun Guba polls, where we had the Senate President, then Senate Bukola Saraki in the entourage. So for him to say they have not until now, I think that is not correct. Secondly, elections are held in compliance with the laws of the land. There's the Electoral Act, and the Electoral Act states clearly that when an election ends, the rights, the provisions for dispute resolution must go to the courts. People must not take the laws into their hands. And for me, his party calling for the resignation of the Chief Justice of Nigeria is an assault on the integrity of the Supreme Court. It shows how irresponsible, that statement is. Because you know why? What they have told us by that statement is that they feel maybe they are talking to people who don't know their right from their left. The judgment of the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal, each justices of that court writes his or her own judgment. One does not look at what the other one is writing. So what the Chief Justice of Nigeria does is to read the lead judgment. It's not that the Chief Justice of Nigeria, you remember, you just said 7 justices. I think we need to go and find out. Is it that the Chief Justice of Nigeria is the one that will write the judgment for every one of them, or they will write their own judgment based on their understanding of the issues? So for you to now say somebody came forth, what is the issue at stake? It is very clear that an election was held, that INEC, under the Nigerian Constitution, does not have the powers to cancel an election in which the results have been declared. If the results have been declared at the polling unit,
you said INEC doesn't have the
powers to cancel an election of which the results have been declared. The only authority that can do that is the courts. Once an election has been conducted and the result has been declared, it stands. You can only fault the legality or otherwise of that result at the courts by you providing proof. It is not enough for you to go to the court, because the court is not a place for comedy. It's not enough for you to go to the court and say, oh, I've been robbed. You must be able to substantially convince the judges with facts and not by words of mouth that, look, I've been robbed. These are my evidences. And the court will look at it. And what is the case in this Imo Guba post? The election was conducted in 388 polling units. The results were excluded. And the candidate said no. The candidate said, I'm going to challenge. The candidate went to the tribunal. The result was upturned. The result stood. It came to the Court of Appeal. There was a dissenting judgment that was very, very logical. Also, let me also come back to a statement he made. In 2015 and 2015, the tribunal, the Court of Appeal, annulled the election of Governor Sowunmi. You remember? And also Governor Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State. It was the Supreme Court that affirmed that INEC victory. So when it favors them, oh, it is well and good. But when it is the other side, oh, we have been robbed. I don't buy into that. We must be very logical. Let
me just remind you of what somebody said. Never in the history of our elections have has a policeman taken up the duty of actually being the one to defend the, I mean,
to tender the vote in the law court. The policeman or the police as an institution is also a witness in election matters, but it's not one that made the pleadings. Don't forget, the person that will go to court is not the police. It is the political party and its candidates. If the political party has gone to court with its candidate and has called a witness, and if the witness comes out to testify that, look, really this was not transferred, because election is not only the responsibility of INEC. That is why you have the political parties and their agents. That is why you have the security agencies there. These are the people that the law has given the authority to come and testify. Even as an observer, you can be called upon if you are an accredited INEC observer. You have a legal status. You can be called upon to come and testify. But in this case, the party said the figures from 388 polling units were excluded even after they had been declared. What one would have expected INEC to have done was to go to court and debunk that result, that result is not legal, that result didn't come from us. But INEC couldn't do that because they knew that result was not only that they wrote the results. An officer would sign to affirm the authenticity of that result. That INEC should have come out, who have been more happy if INEC had come out, or even the PDP had come out to say, oh, the result tendered was fake. He's talking about imaginary concocted result. I'm sure those 388 polling units don't exist in Lagos, but rather they existed in Imo State where that election was conducted. So if you are quarreling with that result, you must be able to substantiate the basis of your quarrel with that result. That no, that result does not come from that polling unit. It was written somewhere. Our officers did not sign it. So if the officers have signed it and the court in its wisdom has realized that these results were excluded, and the court now said they should include that result because that result is legal, and that is the essence of the court. And just because it doesn't favor you, because it has become a norm, everybody wants, when anything happens with regards to the court, when it is not in their favor, oh, democracy is in danger. But immediately they get judgment. Governor Sowunmi, they just got judgment in, through the Supreme Court not too long. Nobody claimed the democracy was in danger. So I find it repulsive that some persons have found it as a way of life that they must bring down this democracy. And I say it without sense of responsibility. Some of us will stand up to them that look, this democracy was given birth to by the blood and sweat of Nigerians. We won't allow you for your own interest.
You said it earlier.
No, I think you think that.
Okay, let me just, in addition to whatever you may want
yes.
to say, some of your protesters yesterday are actually asking for what some of us believe are impossible. They are asking that the judgment be reversed. I mean, that's unprecedented. I mean,
should I respond?
Yes,
Yes. First of all, let me say that when people say they are public commentators, I respect their neutrality and their strong views. But I prefer that call yourself APC, because I will always call myself PDP. I won't mask it under any public commentation. I want to just ask, have we gotten to a point now in this country where the total accredited vote in Imo will be 832,743? That means that's the total available. And by their almighty Supreme Court ruling, the total now is 950,952. Where did they get that 100 plus votes? Please, where did they get that 100 plus votes that did not even exist? In terms of the question you have asked, whether they can reverse themselves. Oh, that chamber used to be populated by great men. I remember Justice Elias, I weep. I remember Socrates, Chukwudipu Oputa. I shake and I imagine how they will be feeling in their graves that the hollow chamber of the Supreme Court of Nigeria has now become a place where even children can fault their thinking. Oputa said, we are the final court does not mean we are infallible. And when we make a mistake, we have the capacity within ourselves to correct ourselves by retrial and writing another report. Look, the heavens will not fall if under our eyes we pretend as if it is only the party at the national that can win or get judgment, and that anybody who has a contrary view that is moderated is an enemy of democracy. All that will happen, if you recall, but I remember what I said clearly, all that will happen is that we will all be living witnesses when the whole thing collapses on our head. It is not enough for us who are too educated, maybe, to be saying this is how it is done and this is how it's done. I started by saying, essentially, the highest court in the land is a court of policy. And as a court of policy, it is not relevant too much what they say, whether you are right or you are wrong. What is more important is that this reasoning must be sound. How sound can a reasoning that produces a mathematical addition that does not exist as the basis? Now on the 380 polling units, if you have ever seen the from ECHA, the one that they give to parties and probably security, the one that is with security is barely legible. That's why it is the duty of INEC to say this is what the thing is. What parties do when they go to court is that they will make their claims and do their own submission and then present it before the court. And if the court considers that they've won, the court may agree with them per their prayer. No one is saying the court did not do that, but we are saying because we are too litigious in this country on election, we need to do two things. We need to clean up the electoral so that we can reduce the level of litigation that is going there. And two, we need to ensure that our courts, from the lowest to the highest, can run according to how great men who have talked about the Supreme Court issues and the issues that emanate from how does a judge come into a decision when he is in court and all evidence is before him. There are 4 principles as enumerated by Cardoso more than 100 years ago, Supreme Court judge, which is still an authority on judicial thinking in that matter. He says, and for the purpose of education, the court must not assume that it can hide under the cloak of a secret knowledge, and the people, the mass of the people, will not be able to interrogate his thinking. That is must be sociologically correct. The judge must recognize that he has the duty sometimes to be a legislator to improve the law and to extend the law. It must have the psychology of what's going on around him and the fact. And it must be careful that it does not set in motion a precedent that is difficult. Kano has been given now, and it has been given to His Excellency the Governor of Kano State of APC, and I congratulate him for his victory. The circumstances in the Kano case that led to the issues in Kano and the circumstances in Nibu, as far as our lawyers and ourselves are concerned, are pretty much similar. Leave that aside. We have gone to, we see, the judgments should be, this is not this country that we've all been. When the Supreme Court speaks, maybe politicians, we need to control that. When the Supreme Court speaks, you may be sad, but when you read it, you must be happy about the depth of jurisprudence.
Some Nigerians are saying, yeah, the loss of PDP does not make the judgment in any way, does not reduce the quality of the judgment. Some Nigerians are actually praising it. Yes. I don't know why.
Yes, the Nigerians who are praising it.
Not necessarily.
No,
partisan people.
No, I know the non-partisan Nigerian. The non-partisan Nigerian people that are praising it, I accept that they are entitled to their praise. We are entitled to say it is illogical for the Supreme Court to now be a manufacturer of figures that does not exist in reality. The total number of accredited votes and the total number now per their judgment is short or overbloated by more than 100 and something thousand. Yeah. Where did it come from?
Don't you have an issue with that figure?
No. The issue is this. Yeah. If results have been excluded, at the end of the day, will that result be tallied to the accredited and total votes?
Oh yes.
No. Don't look. We must be careful and not allow people to come and bamboozle us. When results have been declared in the polling units, and at the ward level, maybe it has been accepted. At the state collation center, it has not been. What is the meaning of exclusion? Is exclusion addition? Exclusion means that result, the total figure from that polling units have been taken off. Okay, where are the
behavioral votes there from that polling unit?
Well, it is not for you to. What I'm saying is that the court is not a Father Christmas. Okay. The court will only answer to the prayers you bring before them. If you have problem, if you have headache, and you go to court and you keep silent, the court will not go and inquire. You will not go and open your prayer and look at what is wrong with you. It is when you come to the court, a candidate has come to court and said, look, my lord, I have XY votes.
So how did they affirm that all the votes were for Uzodinma and not for
it is through the evidence provided. Once they look at those evidences, it is not left for the court to now say, okay, tally the votes for us and let us know what it amounts to. But in this case, what the INEC, I think the greatest culprit in this matter was INEC. INEC had no rights to have excluded those votes that the Supreme Court has now, brought to life. Because what happened was that INEC attempted, to murder a child that has already been, to perform an abortion to a baby that's already been delivered. So in this case, if what they announced, what Mr. Sowunmi and his people are now holding on to is that this is the number of accredited voters. Meanwhile, the votes that were excluded, If you look at the total votes, before
should he have exceeded it?
No, listen now. Let's just make it clear. The votes came from 388 polling units.
That's all right.
If you look at the total votes cast that INEC released, if you didn't add that figure, it will be less. But because you had that figure that the Supreme Court has added now, it will come up. So definitely, if we are to go to accredited voters now, if they should have the accredited voters in those polling units, definitely it will come up. But they are still holding on to the old figures.
No.
That is what it is.
No.
If we say the results have been excluded, do you expect the accredited voters to have also been
let me make it. Let me make our point a little bit.
Some people are alleging that, or insinuating that the legal team of the outgoing
they cross-petitioned.
That they did not cross-petition.
I'm telling you, they cross-petition, but that's not even the issue, because we are not going to do a second trial on television. The point is this, and why this argument can't stand. If you say that the 380 were totally excluded, and because they were completely excluded and it did not impact the accredited vote, then it must also mean that in those 380 polling units, no single individual voted for any other person apart from Hope Uzodinma, which would then mean that by a magic, it is possible in human life that the numbers of Hope Uzodinma's votes will increase and all other persons' votes will stay stagnant. That's that. The other issue. The Supreme Court knows that there is a mandatory demand of a certain number of local government that must make up a quarter before you can be considered validly elected. Does Hope have the total number of local government per 1/4 of the votes? Leave that aside, because it got only 380 from more than 3,000. Over and above that, with profound respect to my friend and brother, are we talking for talking's sake, or we're talking to improve it? I just told you that I stand away, and His Excellency Abubakar stands away from the position.
At that point, what I want you to bring in the Electoral Reforms Act.
Yes, sir.
I mean, would that have also...
The electoral reform is another very sorry and painful reason why we are here. In 2007, of blessed memory, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua won an election, and he saw that election was flawed, and immediately set about the US panel. They couldn't finish it before he died. In 2015, the President Buhari won an election, and he also must have seen that it was flawed. They produced an electoral act that he could have signed to allow for less of these acrimonies. He didn't sign. He withdrew his signature according to his right, because he has the right to withdraw his assent. We are going towards 2023 now. Before, it was not the practice to be calling people to the street. I'm sure you saw the rushes in Imo. We will soon be 2022 and 2023. You have seen how close Southwest has become. We will hope that we will all, for the sanity of all of us, understand that we cannot be a basket case among other nations. Elections are no big deal. You can only win for a period, run the country or run your state for a period, and most likely leave, even if you are too lucky you do it time. Too many of them who did 8 years in 1999 with Bola Tinubu, where are they now politically? Therefore, the process is more important than any victory that either side wants to hold. And I repeat, the Supreme Court of Nigeria, do you know who we are? We provided judges for other countries, Gambia, Senegal, and some of the countries, because the soundness of our judges, our system was, now we are becoming people who will make a judgment, and the total number of available votes and the total number of appropriated votes to one individual will now be more than what is there. Well, it's okay.
So why I don't want to speak for you.
It's okay.
That as a public affairs analyst, you should be seen to be impartial. Now, looking at it, how do you think we actually improve on Imo?
Improve on Imo in what sense?
As in making sure that maybe some of these allegations.
No, it is our responsibility
doubt and all that.
It is our responsibility to ensure that people do not feast on the ignorance and the gullibility of our people, and that is exactly what is happening. Because a lot of times they call people out onto the street, people don't know the reason why they are being called. The issues at stake is very, very clear. That an election took place, the electoral empire acted outside its past. We must make that very clear. And the court has now affirmed that position and did the rightful thing. You are talking about, is it Uzodinma that had the votes alone? The issue is that Uzodinma will be foolish, please pardon me that word, to canvass or to plead votes for another candidate other than himself.
Then that paper, that paper he tendered could not have had only his vote.
Yes, it is not clear for you to through your. That's what I'm saying. What I'm going to advise you now is for you to go back to the Supreme Court if you have that evidence. But for me, Uzodinma will go to court to plead his own case. In this case, people should not. My advice to Nigerians is that they should not allow people to lead them by the nose. They have their own rational faculty.
Yes.
That an election took place. These were the results. The electoral umpire outside its powers excluded votes from certain polling units, and the court said no, you don't have the right to do that.
And the court now affirmed so. Mr. Sowunmi, do you expect any surprises today? I mean, any?
We have, with profound respect, we have now begun to be people in our own side of it who now wait and do vigil and wait for Father Abubakar and Kwanku to make predictions. Since nothing logical is emanating from our system, if INEC does the right thing, the Supreme Court will say INEC is wrong.
So if
INEC does the wrong thing, the Supreme Court will say
against any of your, what will happen? Would there be?
You see, elections are local issues. What will be tolerated in one part may not be tolerated in another. There is a history of how this country has been. We have seen this country, this southwestern part especially, go to flames because of elections and the emotions that go with elections. For me, the issue must be, we must have an electoral process that reduces the amount of things we take to the court for crisis, and the judiciary must recognize that the difference between a lawyer and a judge is because with a judge, by writing judgment, he can become immortal. Would they be able to be happy in their graves if their sons and daughters are quoting them like they quote others?
This final word, just 30 seconds.
I have so many messages here that I can't even
the judiciary for standing firm, even in the face of continuous and relentless assault from known quarters. And we must make it known to them that we stand by them so long as they're on the path of the truth.
Thank you very much.
Fairness.
All right, I have so many. I have over 30 messages.
I can imagine.
People really responded today, but I'm so sorry that we cannot take any of those messages.
Just
I promise
one,
that on Wednesday, when we come on Wednesday, I'll read out all the messages I have on the program today. We really have to go. I am Jumoke Michael. See you on Wednesday.
Jumoke has overruled me. She's the Supreme Court of this. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. We sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Banji Busari. See you on Wednesday.